Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk to you about how to become ultra confident in your speech. Sometimes you hear people when they're talking, and it seems to be more in the younger people, but it's in adults too. And that's not to single out young people because it's not a problem only with them, but it does seem to be more prevalent. And maybe as people age, they kind of have learned to maybe speak less, and so they don't have as many opportunities to speak with filler words as they would when they were younger and they're just kind of speaking just to speak. But as I mentioned, this is a universal problem. It just seems more prevalent in the younger, youthful people, maybe because they get more attention, but it's a universal problem that reflects poorly on the person speaking. But I think there's something that social media has been doing to people who've been raised in social media that has caused this kind of, I don't know if it's sloppiness or laziness. It might be that, but it might also be just a literal dumbing down. These are not dumb people, but they speak in such a way that it would indicate a lack of intelligence, even though they're not. They are not lacking intelligence. And they use a bunch of filler words such as or like. Like is probably one of the biggest things, and while like is perfectly fine to use in a conversation, when it's used excessively, I went to the store and the cashier was and that is, it just looks like you have no thoughts in your mind, and it reflects poorly upon you. Now, one of the things you can do to be more confident in your speech is to be cognizant of those filler words and understand something very important, that you don't have to speak. The scripture says in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19, "In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise." So I want you to think about that a little bit. Sometimes these filler words come in, and a lack of confidence in your speech come in because you're talking when maybe you shouldn't be. And I'll give you an example. I've had people say, "I don't understand how you talk about so many subjects in your videos." And the simple fact is that I study and I learn. Each and every day I'm learning. I don't feel like I've learned all there is to learn. I know a small, tiny, minuscule fraction of what there is to know. And so I'm constantly learning each and every day. I'm constantly improving myself. And so when I speak on a subject, though, I make sure it's a subject that I understand fully and I can talk about with authority and not speak like a fool. Not just babble or talk about things that I think could happen. I don't just babble out words just to say things. It's thoughtful because it's stuff I've meditated on. It's stuff I've thought about. It's stuff I've considered. I've pondered. It's stuff I've discussed with other people. And so when I'm speaking from a place of authority because I understand the subject. And if it's a subject I don't understand, I don't speak on it. That right there can be a tip that can absolutely help you tremendously to be confident in how you speak, is by not talking about things you don't understand or you don't know well enough to be an expert in. Maybe those things you take a back seat and you say, "No, I'll listen to other people talk." There's no shame in not speaking. There's that old saying that it's better to be thought a fool and not speaking than to speak and confirm everyone's suspicions. There is zero shame in not being well versed in a subject and admitting that. Now, I'm not saying you gotta go around and just say, "Oh, I don't understand, I don't know." But you just don't have to speak. If somebody brings up a subject, you don't have to interject your opinions that may not be based on any kind of fact. Instead, you can just listen to the person talk about it. With many people, they'll go from one subject to another. They don't even necessarily want your input. And so why speak and announce to the world, "I don't have the information about this subject, and I'm just babbling out stuff I don't even understand, or don't understand fully, or don't have a nuanced approach to, because I don't understand both sides of the subject." Just let the other person talk. Listen to them. Ask them questions. That's one way you can also gain knowledge and understand more. This person has an opinion about a subject. They have a certain perspective on it. Hear them out. Ask them questions about their perspective. You don't have to always be right. And that is another important thing to be confident in your speech, is to not have this opinion that you always have to be right. Because what that will do is it'll get you speaking when you shouldn't be speaking at all. It'll get you interjecting yourself into subjects that you have no business talking about. And that's where you can come in and make a fool of yourself. Or you start talking and saying like and like. And you look like somebody doesn't understand how to speak. Somebody doesn't have well thought out opinions about subjects, doesn't understand subject matter, and is just babbling out whatever to their heart's content, and is not actually thoughtful about their speech. When we speak, it should be as the oracles of God, as the scripture says. We should be speaking eloquently, speaking words that are edifying, speaking words that are informative, speaking words that are blessings, not cursings. And so it is better to take a beat or two and think about something before you speak. Thinking before you speak is perfectly fine. You may think, well, people will think I'm slow. Who cares? It's way better to be thought to be slow than to just be babbling out nonsense that nobody wants to hear, or that's completely wrong in some cases, or shows a lack of knowledge on the subject. And I'll give you an example in this. I've seen people who are pretending to be Christians. I'm not talking about professing Christians who think they're Christians. I'm talking about people who are literally pretending, and they're kind of interjecting themselves into the subject. And I knew this one gentleman. He was pretending to be a Christian who was a vegan, because trying to, I guess, get close to me because he knows I'm a vegan Christian. But I immediately knew he wasn't a Christian because he worded things in such a way that you could tell he was not informed in the subject. Even though he's claiming, oh, I've been a Christian for decades, he didn't have a working knowledge of the scripture, working knowledge of walking with Jesus. He used weird terminology that somebody from the outside would use, showing they don't understand what they're talking about. And he exposed himself. If he had just said, oh yeah, I've been following Jesus and I'm a vegan, can you tell me more about it? But he had to keep speaking, keep interjecting, keep saying things, and he revealed himself quite plainly to not be a Christian, to be someone. And what he was trying to do is he was trying to sell books and seminars and things, and he was just trying to cash in on it, which is truly pathetic. Now, you don't have any kind of bad motive like that individual did, but you may just want to have a thought given in such a way that people will hear it and respect it and take it with authority, and that's why you want to be confident in your speech. So, as I mentioned, take out the filler words. Those aren't helping you, and a lot of times those filler words are in because you haven't properly conceived your thought. You just started speaking to speak. Go back to that verse in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. Refrain your lips. It's okay not to speak sometimes. Now, if somebody's asking you a question, obviously you speak. But you could just turn around and ask them a question when they're asking you a question. So if you don't know a lot about a subject and they're asking you a question about it, you can turn around and ask them a question. And what you'll find, and I mentioned this before in the past, that some of the most successful people in the world, worth billions and billions of dollars, when they come across people who are wanting to ask them a bunch of questions and pick their brains, so to speak, instead it gets turned around and the billionaire, the successful person, is asking them a bunch of questions, because that successful person's always trying to learn. And here's the thing that is very important in speech and talking and conversing with somebody else. When you ask them a bunch of questions and get their opinion, let them speak, ask them questions about themselves, learn about them, they will appreciate you more than if you gave them a 10-hour speech with the most important and accurate information in the history of the world. Because most people are way more interested in what they're saying and what they think, and the other people are interested in what they say and are interested in them. So if all things fail and you don't know what to say about a subject, and you don't want to just speak randomly, ask the person questions about that subject that they're talking about. Ask them about themselves, how they came to that opinion. Not in a confrontational way, but just in a learning way. And people will appreciate that more. And you can do that confident. You don't have to say a bunch of ums and likes and be all weak and look like you're not confident in what you're saying. Because all you're doing is asking them questions about themselves, and you can reword what they told you to show them that I understand. So what you're saying is, and then reword what they told you, indicating that you understand what they've actually said. You were actually listening to them. And that's important, because another thing in speech is so often people are not listening to what the other person is saying. They are formulating what they're going to say in response to it. When you'd be better off, if you want to be confident in your speech, to listen to what the person's actually saying. Hear them out. Ask them questions about it. Then formulate a response. These simple little tips in your daily life, your daily speeches, I'm not talking about big speeches obviously given to masses, but just individual conversations and speeches one-on-one, or maybe in a small group. This will get you better results, and it will make you more confident in your speech. You won't be doubting, you won't be stammering, you won't be wavering, you won't be using a bunch of filler words. You'll have confidence in your speech because you'll know that you're doing things from a right perspective. You're not speaking when you don't have information on the subject. You're asking questions when you don't maybe know enough about the subject to get more input from the individual who's talking to you about this subject in the first place. You're not using a bunch of filler words because you're just trying to come up with something on the spot and you haven't really thought it out. And you're interested in what the person's actually saying and actually listening to them, actually paying attention to what they're saying, not just trying to come up with what you're going to say next. If you'll do these things, really be thoughtful about it and diligent about it, you'll watch as your speech becomes more confident. You have an air of authority about you as you speak. Because you're not speaking like everybody else does, randomly, speaking about useless things, speaking about dumb topics, speaking about things they don't know about. You'll be speaking about things in an informed way, with confidence and authority, because you're a person of character and substance who has important things to say. And when you speak, it's important and people want to take note of what you have to say. So my friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.